pretty major milestone.
Yeah, it's a nice number.
What did Leon? What did he say to you when he came over after your 50th?
Well, welcome to the club.
Wow. Well, the rest of the hockey world is a lot more excited than Connor McDavid about hitting that 50-goal milestone for the first time in his career. A grand total of 8 words spoken in the 2 questions asked about it. But he's got bigger things on his mind. Welcome to Got Your Back, folks. Brought to you by Mr. Dirk. And join Jason Strudwick and Chris Sabunia in just a moment. Lots ahead on the podcast today, recapping McDavid's big night. A disappointing, but potentially encouraging loss for the Edmonton Oilers last night against the number 1 team in the league. And of course, it's that time of year. We're going to talk some trades in our takeaways segment. Of course, Got Your Back brought to you by Mr. Dirk, located just off White Avenue and 102nd Street. It's your one-stop shop for all your clothing needs. If you want to upgrade that business look, they've got a fantastic selection of shirts and suit coats, dress clothes, ties, pocket squares, whatever you want, and it's all beautifully laid out in a fantastic showroom. They've also got you covered for all your casual needs as well. Jeans, pants, shirts, everything you need when it comes to your clothing. If you feel like it's time for a refresh, for an upgrade, or you just need something for a big event, go see the fantastic crew down at Mr. Dirk, just off White Avenue and 102nd Street. We say a fine morning to the fellas. Zuby out in Kelowna and Struddy. How we doing, boys? Zuby, how are you, man? It's been a little bit here. I was on vacation. You guys kept this thing floating while I was away.
We did, and I thought it went pretty well, actually. You must have felt like things were pretty autonomous for you to be away. Even you jumped in there a little bit, but things moved along. The ship kept sailing. And I thought we did all right.
It was okay, Struddy. Struddy got most of the sponsor reads right. And although my brother's a DLR, did
Yes.
shoot me a text and say, Struddy's having trouble with the letters DLR all in a row, and wanted to ask if maybe they could change the name to better suit your reads. I think DLY.
DLY.
What they ended up being a few times, Struds.
Just a single letter. Why is it so complicated? I mean, I don't need to rebrand their whole business. It sounds like they're doing pretty well, but I'm available to sit down. Obviously, a consultation fee for this type of sit down. But
yeah, no. Well, you guys did a great job. What a week! Like, man, the Oilers with the quality of competition that they're facing here, guys. Like measuring stick games. You got the trade deadline looming. Zuby, you always keep an eye on Oiler Twitter. How's everybody doing out there, man, in Oiler Twitter?
Well, I understand the frustration, but I mean I think Holland pretty clearly laid out that is going to be his strategy was to sit back a little bit, watch the prices, see who's available, and there's people like saying I'm embarrassed and he's the worst. It's like there's 4 days still till the deadline. Unless I missed it, the deadline is still Friday. And yeah, there's people going off the board. I'm sure lots of Oilers fans would love to have as additions to the team, but man, the deadline is not happening yet. You can be mad, you can be embarrassed, if you want, you have the right to be mad or embarrassed as a fan, whatever, in 4 days. Not yet. It just because you didn't get whatever that guy, Jake McCabe or whoever, you just gotta suck it up for now.
Yeah, Struddy, what are you encountering out there?
Oh, just so much anger. It's crazy. This team went to the 3rd round of the playoffs last year, and the level of anger of over the inactivity of this team, I'm blown away. I'm shocked, and people, I honestly
are you?
Think it's
are you surprised, Struds?
I am, because
are you really?
I really think it's quite. It's just so short-sighted, and I think it's to keep up the Joneses, right? Everyone else is adding pieces, and the Oilers haven't. And I think people are jealous and they're mad. We should have got this guy. Like every single guy that was traded for, the Oilers should have got. It should have been just all in, trade everything you got, get there. And there's been some good players exchanged. I haven't liked all of them, but there's some I have liked. And like Tanner Jeannot. I'm not paying that for Tanner Jeannot. No. I like Tanner Jeannot. I think he's a good quality player, but essentially becomes 2 first-round picks for Tanner Jeannot. I'm sorry. And you know what it is? And I recognize that those 2 first overall picks may not become better players than Tanner Jeannot. But when you trade those 2 picks away, you can't get someone who's better than Tanner Jeannot. Right? That's the thing. We'll trade those 2 and they'll trade 2 more. Like it would have been Tanner Jeannot nothing. If the Oilers had made that trade, people would have lost their minds that they gave up that much for Tanner Jeannot and not got the D-man. So you got to look at the body of the work. And I don't know. I'm more patient, everyone. I'm more like Ken Holland. I'm not going to lie. Do things that make sense, not keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah. Okay. Lots more trade talk a little bit later on in the podcast in our takeaways segment. But we had a 50-goal night from Connor McDavid and a really good game against the Boston Bruins. So let's get to that. Zuby, we'll check in with you in a little bit. Time for the breakdown, brought to you by DLR Vinyl Products. That's DLR Vinyl Products.
They changed their name.
They did. They changed their name.
Jeez, what?
Yeah. Well, they have some of the nicest maintenance-free decking and fencing products out there. This is my brother's company. So Rick runs the branch here in Edmonton, and Rob runs the branch out in Calgary. And it's a business that my dad started years and years ago. And it's just really high-quality, maintenance-free vinyl fencing and decking. So if you've got wood in your backyard right now, and you're always thinking about, man, I'm going to have to stain that this year or sand it or paint it or whatever. It's kind of annoying because you know it's coming. Strongly encourage you to give vinyl products a try through DLR. Goes in. It's beautiful the day it goes in and it stays that way. It's maintenance free. You don't have to worry about it. It looks fantastic. It's really durable. I've got a bunch in my yard and it's definitely well worth looking into it. So give them a call. That's DLR Vinyl Products, locations in Calgary and in Edmonton. So we have a great game to talk about, but we also have a great milestone from Connor McDavid. I think not often that players hit 50 goals, and so maybe we just start there, Struds. 4 consecutive 2-goal games to get himself to that 50-goal plateau. That is doing it in style and just throwing the team on his shoulders. So we're really seeing some elevated play from him. You know this, though he didn't give us much of an answer. This means something to Connor McDavid in his heart of hearts, but just he was giving us nothing last night post-game on it.
Yeah, I think I predicted he'd do this in about 4 or 5 games from now. So obviously I know hockey very well. But, Connor, every great player wants to know that they have that in their just their repertoire.
DNA?
They score,
Sure.
50 goals. 50 goals. I remember my buddy Joe McGinley scored 50 goals. He was very proud of it. And he was the same. He didn't talk about it much, but amongst his buddies, we gave him a hard time. And you could tell he was proud. He chirped us back. And so that was when I really realized 50 goals means something to elite players. So good for Connor. And the way he did it, so many different ways he scored, attacking the net, some shots from distance. He's just amazing. And now the question for me is, where does he stop? Right, 50 is great, but what can he? I think 60 is inevitable. 65, can we imagine a number of the 7 before it? I don't know, but I think now it's where he stops. He's got the 50 now. After this, it's where it stops.
It's interesting. I think I asked last night in the press box because Gregor does math better than I do. What's he on pace for? Like 66 or 67, something like that.
Yeah.
Is what Gregor mentioned. And I wonder if we'll see him just roll through 50 and continue, not at the 2 goals a game pace that he's been setting, but these are going to be really important, really meaningful games against really good teams. He's going to have to be fantastic over this next week and a half if the Oilers are going to pick up points at the pace they want to pick up points. So I could see him continuing to bury at a pretty high rate here while they're playing the Bostons and Torontos and even Winnipeg, though I know they've kind of gone the wrong way here. So it'd be really interesting to see how far he can push this total. I see a player that takes the puck to the middle of the ice more often. I see a player that shoots through traffic more often than he used to. I see a player who's better on breakaways. I see a player who shoots more on 2-on-1s. I see a player who sharpened the shooter's instinct over a period of a couple of years here. And McDavid was already fantastic at so many things. Goal scoring was kind of that one thing where you're like, how would you characterize him as a goal scorer? And he's elevated his goal scoring instinct. And that's interesting to me, to watch a player shape his instinct as a goal scorer differently, Struddy, than it used to be.
Yeah, and that's fair. And he creates so many opportunities for himself. And you know what? But I wouldn't label him selfish. And I think there's that's a really fine line because the way he can move and the way he can skate, he can get into position to shoot, but people are still wondering, is he going to pass or shoot? And I think that's part of the magic that is Connor McDavid's goal scoring, is that, he's got a good shot, but I wouldn't say he wouldn't put him up there with Ovechkin. But he kind of freezes people, like, on the first goal last night. Is he going to shoot or pass? And he shoots it. And you're like, oh my God, he could have just as easily passed it. So as a D-man, I'm always trying to figure out what he would have done. And I think that's the genius that is Connor McDavid, is that you're not sure. He creates for himself, creates for his line mates, and then he gets in that position. You're not sure what he's going to do. 50 is amazing. And I'm happy for him. Like, he wants it. He's going to have to be great, obviously, to continue pushing this team and helping his team. And I think if he gets on close to 70, I don't know, man, I wouldn't bet against this guy.
Crazy. Just unreal to think about that number. In case you missed it off the top of the show, we'll go to the Weiss Johnson soundbox. We asked McDavid 2 questions about hitting 50 last night. The first was just about the milestone, and the second was what Draisaitl said to him.
Pretty major milestone. It's a nice number.
What did he say to you when he came over after your 50th?
Well, welcome to the club.
That's perfect from Leon Draisaitl. That's exactly right. Been there, done that, has Leon Draisaitl. But I think McDavid might start his own club here in the next couple of weeks. I was as interested, Struds, in some of the other comments that Connor McDavid had last night after the game. So after the Columbus game, he talks about an embarrassing start and an embarrassing finish. Aggressive wording, right? But I like it from Connor McDavid because he's the captain of the team and he needs to set the tone. Last night, he actually pointed out some mistakes that some teammates made and the fact that Yamamoto didn't finish on a couple of opportunities. McDavid is so competitive. And I think what we're hearing come out a little bit in his media availabilities is the leadership of putting pressure on people to come through, and I'm going to play this clip here back in the Weiss Johnson soundbox. But think about this. We would not have heard McDavid make a comment like this over the last few years. It's different this year.
We have a couple looks and we don't capitalize, against a team that doesn't give up much. Yams has a couple looks, a couple of plays here and there, and it's a different game.
So Kailer Yamamoto, we'll talk about him in a little bit, but that's McDavid. I mean, you got to push the guys around you. Connor McDavid, Struds, has realized they're not getting where they want to go unless other guys are pulling on the rope. It can't just be him. And from a leadership standpoint, maybe putting some pressure on some guys to come through in these moments.
I like it, actually. And, as I watched that game last night, I kept thinking, man, the Oilers are close. They're so close. But unfortunately, the last 5 steps on a 100-mile journey are usually the hardest. Think about climbing Mount Everest. The last 100 feet, they say, are the hardest to do. And so for the Oilers, I completely agree with Connor McDavid. I think that, or the idea that they are close. They are close to doing well, but there's just subtle little breakdowns that they're preventable. Or on the other side, they're not finishing their chances. Boston, they got it done. They didn't get they didn't get that many chances, but the ones they did get, they converted. And then, quite frankly, the last goal, that was a pretty bad breakdown, but also kind of a lucky goal. But you need to have that last little bit. Every shift counts. Every single shift counts, and every opportunity you get to score. And Yamamoto had those 2 chances, and he wasn't alone. But it makes it hard. It's really, really hard. And I think he's going to be pushing guys to get that last 5% out of their game or into their game, so they can win games like that, like last night, 4-3 or whatever, 3-2.
I wish I would have pulled the clip from Tyson Barrie, but we asked Barrie last night about McDavid getting to that 50-goal mark, and he sort of laughed, chuckled about it. They're obviously very proud of him and happy for him, but he said, because we mentioned to him that Connor didn't really have much to say about it, and he goes, if we want to make that guy happy, we need to win. And I just thought it was interesting the way he said it. If we want to make that guy happy, we need to win. Like, McDavid is so not about any of this individual stuff because he's been there and done that, most of this stuff. And you just sense that, he needs to push the group and that he is pushing the group in a little bit of a different way. One more time here to the Weiss Johnson soundbox. Listen to the way he described the Boston Bruins, what they're made of, what's deep in their DNA from years of watching that culture. Here's McDavid on the Bruins.
Winning is a skill, and they've obviously mastered it. They capitalize on mistakes here and there, and they don't give up much.
So he's sitting there watching the way this team functions and the way this team plays. Winning is a skill, and they've obviously mastered it. He's desperate to help his group master it too, Struds. But you talk about those last 5 steps, right? Like they're not quite there, and I don't think they quite have the personnel they need to be there. And I wouldn't say the same thing about Boston. That's a well-rounded team.
Yeah, it's a well-rounded team. They're built well, organized from top to bottom. The leadership is as one before. They've been around a long time. Like they set the tone for everything, right? So, yeah, I mean that's going to be a tough out. But the flip side is the Oilers can see. They can see it. Like they can see what that looks like, and the Oilers for stretches did it. There were small little details. So the penalties. Some of those penalties. You don't need to take those penalties, right? Like they're just,
let's dig into that late in the game, Struds, because you've got 2 guys that want to play the game aggressive and 2 guys that get ice time because they play the game aggressive. But the line is so fine in big moments. To take something, it can be such a positive in building trust with the coaches and all that. And then you get opportunity late in the game and you do that. Like, I'm not sure which one was worse. The Desharnais one to me was less disciplined. The Kostin one was just not thinking. Bad penalties from depth guys.
100%, and both actually I thought played a pretty good game. But so let's review. So there's Desharnais, which I love that he does that, slashes Pasternak on the back. You can't do that in that situation.
Do that.
You want to do that in the first period, you're still going to get a penalty. The Kostin, just no control of his stick. That is unacceptable.
So bad.
He had a good game, Yamamoto reaching, getting 2 minutes for hooking. Kostin reaching, 2 minutes for hooking. Those are unacceptable penalties. Now they're lucky the penalty kill did a good job. 0 for 5 that Boston Bruins power play goes, but those are penalties that you cannot take. That's the last 5%. You can't. That's the last 5%. Teams don't do that. They skate that last little bit. They keep their stick down on the ice, and that's it. And like I said, I actually thought that Kostin and Desharnais had good games, but you can't take those penalties, quite frankly, at any time against a good team, but especially the last little bit there.
I'm going to give Kostin a bit of a pass. I thought the one call on him was garbage. Like his hand, his stick was not into the hands in a way that I thought should have been called a penalty, but it's there, and you're tempting fate by having your stick in that area.
You put your stick parallel to the ice on another man, you're risking a call. That's just a fact. And so you have to know that. Like don't be surprised by this. So you as soon as your stick is parallel, I think it should be called. It's parallel to the ice on the guy's glove. It should be called. It should just call it right away. So that's the standard they set in 0405. That's the way it should be now. So I have zero tolerance for that. I don't care who it is. I'm like, that better. And Yamamoto knows better too. He's reaching. Yamamoto's reaching and pries the stick open. That's a lazy penalty. As you cannot accept that. You cannot accept that as a coach or as a teammate, quite frankly. It's a bad penalty.
And the solution to that is 2 or 3 more hard strides and get there, right?
100%.
Close the gap.
Or let the guy go.
Stop skating and start reaching.
Well, Yamamoto, that penalty happens in the offensive zone. What are you stopping? What are you preventing there? Like that's a lazy, undisciplined penalty that cannot happen. It can't happen.
All right, a reminder, 45 years in the business, Weiss Johnson is there for you should you need a furnace, garage heater, air conditioner, hot water tank, or any of those things serviced. They are the place to go. Edmonton's #1 choice for heating, air conditioning, and plumbing services. Give them a call, 780-463-3096. Let's talk about the 2-on-1. And it was McDavid on the back check. It was Kulak handling the 2-on-1. And we had a real debate in the press box about where that mistake was, who made that mistake. My assertion is Brett Kulak needed to hold his lane and stick with the guy and let Connor McDavid flare over to where the pass had just gone. But instead, Kulak crossed over to his left, and as soon as he crossed over to his left and McDavid was already heading in that direction, a fantastic feed through, miscommunication there. I think Brett Kulak is the one that needs to control that play, stay in his lane, and make a better call there. You?
Yeah, that was really unfortunate. That was a nothing play that turned into a goal. And at last 5%, man, that's what I'm talking about there. And I've talked about this type of play before. Brett Kulak is in charge. He is the one who's directing traffic. He has to let the forward know exactly what he wants. In that play, I would prefer to stay up on the guy with the puck and then direct Connor McDavid to the guy that ends up scoring.
Hang on a sec. The guy who ended up. So, are you saying? I just want to be clear on what you're saying. Are you saying that? So, what happened is the puck got passed over to the wing.
That's right.
And McDavid went hard to that guy. Yeah. Kulak also crossed over to go to that guy. Right. So, which guy do you think should have stayed?
I believe that is Kulak's player, and Connor fans off to the other one. But how do they know? How do they know that's the play? They didn't talk to each other. There was zero discussion. I watched a number of times. They were just they may as well have had the blinders on. No one talked to each other. But it is the D man's job to coordinate who takes who. Now, if it goes the other way and Connor's going to take that guy, then yes, Kulak has to bury off. But you think about it. Kulak can, if he stays with the guy who's a puck carrier, who the puck gets passed to, he stays up on him, and McDavid goes over. It's a 2-on-2. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. And so it is a lack of communication, and we've seen this before, and it happens. It happens quickly, but unfortunately, to me, that was like a nothing play. Absolutely nothing. The Oilers had numbers coming back, and then all of a sudden turns into a breakaway. That's not good enough. So I didn't like the way that either one of them played. Either Connor or Brett Kulak played it.
Yeah, it started with a turnover down at the far end of the ice as well. I think McDavid turned it over in the offensive zone, then hustled on the back check and miscommunication there. The other, you talk about the last 5%. Closing out periods, man, good teams just recognize the situation late in a period in a tie game. That is just such critical minutes, critical moments. What did you see as a mistake there on the eventual game winner?
There was 4 Oilers players in the same quadrant of the ice. And then there's CC in front, and Forbort was fanning out for a one-timer. So if you go back and review it, dangerous. It was a really, I mean, there was a pretty long sequence in the Oilers zone. And then, Nurse takes his player out to the wing. And then you got, I think it was Draisaitl, McDavid, and I believe Hyman, all in the same upper right quadrant of the Oilers D zone, all focused on the puck, not looking around. Now, luckily, Pasternak passed it to front of the net, and CC kind of tries to stop it, and it was a bit of an unlucky goal. But Forbort fanned out for a wide open one-timer on the far side. Nobody saw it. So there has to be discipline to recognize, like, okay, like who was the left winger there? Who was the right winger? Everyone was all over the place, right? And the structure just completely broke down. Now, it was a bit of a lucky goal, no doubt. But, when you end up... Bit of an
odd move from Skinner there, a little bit, like going for the poke and kind of...
Yeah, it was. He may have been better off just standing there, right, and accepting the shot. But he's trying to poke it away, and so there was. It's no one's fault, but it's everyone's fault. You can't have four players defending above the top of the circles. Essentially, is what it was, and then CC back there with Skinner, like understanding. Okay, we got a minute left in this period. We're going to stay down and defend. So again, just running around, and it happens. Even good teams, they get. I mean, the Oilers are a good team, but even against elite defenders, you get running around. But just saying, one of those forwards has to back off. Say, you know what, Nurse is up. I'm going to back off. I'm just going to kind of help out.
Yeah, talk about just being able to close out, man. That last 30 seconds, 40. Like you're in a tie game, you're in it. You've had a period where you came back and you had momentum shift your way. They were in that zone. They'd carried some play. It was like good things that happened that period. Then all of a sudden, just boom.
That's the game.
Huge shift in the game. The Oilers had a period to get themselves back into it, but against Boston, what was Boston's record? I think they're like 30-0-2 or something when they lead after 40 minutes. I mean, they just don't give up leads.
That's the game.
So that was definitely a dagger. So they regrouped for the third period, and I mean, listen, big picture here, Struds. If you look at the way that third period went up until the time where the Oilers took those penalties, I mean, they were right in there against the best team in the league. And I talked to the guys after the game, and they were drawing some positive from it because this was a measuring stick game, and they absolutely measured up. For sure they did in that game. They played well. I mean, look at the shots. What were they, 28, 24? Shot attempts weren't ridiculous in either direction. So they tested themselves against the best team. Bruins didn't have Hall. Oilers didn't have Kane. And I think they passed the test, even though they lost that game.
Yeah, I think that missing Kane is bigger for the Oilers than Hall missing for the Bruins. I mean, Hall's a good player.
Fair,
but I think just the dynamic that Kane brings to that team is really important for the Oilers. They should be satisfied is a bit of a tough word, but they should be encouraged by the way they played against the Bruins. But there's still a ways to go, and all those attention to little details. Just and they do it shift after shift after shift, and then boom, there's a mistake, right? And goal. Because you look at the 3 goals that they were created. I wouldn't say that they were amazing plays by the Boston Bruins. In some ways they were just kind of breakdowns, right? By the Edmonton gave them to them. So, and that happens in a game, but to compete with those top teams, you've really got to be dialed in. So, if I'm the Oilers, I feel okay with how it went, but I'm looking forward to the game against the Leafs, because it's another opportunity to prove to yourselves, don't worry about everybody else, that this team can compete with the best. And I think they can. I really do think they can. And just tidy up a couple areas, stay out of the penalty box for the needless penalties, and finish on your opportunities.
You had a thought on Leon Draisaitl's game?
I expected a huge game from Leon. I thought he was good, but in these heavier games, I kind of expect him to hold on to that puck more. And what I see from Leon right now is I feel like he's overpassing the puck. There are opportunities, I think, for, even at the end of the game, he gets it down. There's like 10, 15 seconds left. He gets it down and he's kind of by the hash mark, and he kind of just throws it back to the D-man. Now there's no one there, and I think there has to be someone there, but can he not just bully that puck to the net and just funnel it to the net and get it there? Even on the power play, sometimes I feel like he's trying to overpass it. And I think for Leon, he's got to get a more direct game. And it's not that he's playing bad. I think just when I see him at his best, he is hogging the puck, holding it and drawing people to him and bullying people, pushing people around and then sliding the puck over to someone's open. I think now he's trying to pass it before he's trying to do that. And I think there's another gear to Leon's game, and I think that he would agree to that. And it's not that he's playing bad. I just have a higher expectation of him. I think back to the playoffs last year, I see that's the Leon in my mind that I see. And I think when he gets there, it'll just take a team to another level.
1 assist, -1 last night for Draisaitl. I'll add to it too, Struds. I agree with everything you said. I also think, and again, he's putting up points. He's doing his job. Probably 3 or 4 times we saw last night with the body language, arm up in the air when someone doesn't get him the puck. Right. Late in the game when they were killing the penalty but trying to score a goal, and then one of their defensemen just iced the puck down the ice because they were killing a penalty and needed a change, and you could see he was just like, what are we doing? Like these body language things. And I know these are small details, and it feels like, don't make a big deal about small stuff. But I just think about the difference, right? Like if instead of allowing that frustration to come out on the ice, you just put your head down, and you just were dogged in your work ethic and determination. And if you don't allow that to creep into your game. I'm sure McDavid's frustrated out there. You know what he does when he's frustrated? He just skates harder. He puts his head down and he skates harder and he grinds on it. And I just think, I don't know, teammates see that. People see that. It comes out in his game. He's not at his best when that is prevalent in his game. And we are seeing some of that in his game here and there. So I think, to get fully pulling on that rope in the right direction, that stuff will come out of Draisaitl's game, and I'm still seeing it.
Yeah, and that's fair. And I think maybe part of that is about his own game too, right? Like I think
sure.
It's a little bit, and again, he scored in 7 straight games, so it's not that I'm saying he's playing badly, but
no,
I think there's another level for Leon to get to. I'm still on. He's got to be on his own line. I still feel strongly about that, but that's a coach's call.
Well, and it's tough for Woodcroft. Like he double shifts McDavid off the start of the game, and they score a goal, with him and Draisaitl out there together, right? Beautiful pass all the way up ice. McDavid goes in and buries. So I hear you, but he's always going to gravitate back toward those two together. All right, let's get to the numbers. Brought to you by Horse Racing Alberta. The Alberta horse racing and breeding industry contributes over $300 million to the Alberta economy annually and employs over 5,000 hardworking Albertans. Experience some of the finest thoroughbred racing in Western Canada at Century Mile Racetrack and Casino when live thoroughbred racing returns coming up in May. Struddy, maybe we'll have to go check out the horses, take in some races, have a dinner and some horse racing in May. Sound good?
I love it. I love the
Let's
ponies.
For more info, stay up to date. Go to thehorses.com. Okay, the numbers. This is where we both pick a number that we think is relevant to a storyline. I'll let you go first, Reddy. What do you got?
Well, sorry to pile on a guy, but I'm going to go with Kyler Yamamoto. And 3 shots and no goals. And he had 2 glorious chances. One early in the third. Nuge set him up in front, and he misfired. Got to score, man. That's got to be a goal. And it's... I wasn't a goal scorer. I recognize that. But there's just moments in the game where you have to find a way to convert those, right? And it was kind of a nothing play, right? Like New just gets it and Yamo goes to net, puts himself in a good position. He's unable to convert. He had one earlier in the game, same thing. It just, they got to go in. They have to go in. And that's part of that last 5%. So you're talking about, maybe cleaning up the penalties a little bit tighter in your own zone, then finishing the chances you get. Because as you proceed through the season, then in the playoffs, those chances become less and less. It's not like you're getting 5 of those a game. Yamamoto, to my count, had at least 2 really good ones, Schauger. So I might go 2 instead of 3, but those 2, and I think the one I'm talking about, the 30, didn't even hit the net, so it wasn't counted as a shot.
Yeah.
Got to convert.
I went Kailer Yamamoto 2 in my numbers segment. I picked 2 numbers, 5 and 3.1. 5, the number of goals that he scored this season, $3.1 million, the cap space that he takes up on this team. Listen, he had the 20-goal year last year, and he earned the contract. You don't begrudge a guy, just is what it is. But 5 goals in 37 games from Kailer Yamamoto this year, and in fairness, he's been battling injury. We know that as well. This is such an important player. They need him to be a top 6 winger that can play with those skilled guys and not just, make a few plays and not screw up, but finish. When you play with these guys, you got to finish. And definitely notable last night for Connor McDavid to make mention of the fact that Yamamoto had a couple of chances. But for the cap space that he occupies, they need more production out of him. What's that pace? Is that an 11-goal pace, I think, give or take? 11 or 12-goal pace for the season, and it's not where they needed him to be this year. He's part of a middle tier that the Oilers have needed more from, Struddy. So the 3.1 he occupies on the cap to have 5 goals and clearly be a third-line player, I think it's a tough turn, and it's regression from another middle tier player. The Oilers have had regression from too many of these guys. I look at Bouchard, same thing. Puljujarvi, we've all seen that. They need more from him for this team to function properly.
Yeah, you talk about Yamamoto, Bouchard, and Puljujarvi. Those are 3 guys I think the expectations were taking another step, right? And all 3 I think have come back, and some have come back more than others, but they've all come back, and that's. Ken Holland was counting on those 3 guys being productive, right? Didn't need them to have career years, but to be productive, like 10 to 20 goals for sure the forwards, and then the D, just a better, like just a more sound game from Bouchard. And so it hasn't happened. Yeah. So he's trying to plug those holes now on the fly, and that's 8 million or whatever that is, 9, whatever that is, 7 million altogether. I don't know what the number is, but you get the point.
I'm going to sneak in another number because it just continues to kind of annoy me. 0 is my other number. Total number of hits Ryan McLeod threw in a game against the Boston Bruins last night. Yeah. And I know they don't keep that stat great sometime. Maybe they missed 1 or 2 here or there, but I'm sorry. For the amount of ice time they want to give this player, for the opportunity sitting there in front of this player, it doesn't have to be steamrolling people, but my goodness, you have to physically engage and show that you're willing to do what you need to do to stay on the ice out there. I don't know. Am I too hard on him, Struds? Am I asking an apple to be an orange here? Like, just finish some checks, man.
Yeah, we all get our things in our head, right? And listen, McLeod is a very fast player and he's productive. I think that he could use his physicality, or he use that speed to run into guys and just kind of give himself a little bit more time. And it doesn't mean you have to be like Clean Costin, knocking guys over the box or the bench, but you got to find a way to be just harder to play against, right? A little more, dictate a little bit more the physical play. Because his line mates, I think Fogel's trying to get it going. Janmark gets around there pretty well, or whoever his other line mates kind of rotate around. But there's another level for him, right? And that's, you got to keep taking steps forward and adding to your game and improving it, and I think that he is reluctant to do it. I don't think it's fear. I really get a sense that it's not aware that is something he can add.
Mm-hmm. I can't imagine why Dave Tippett wouldn't have been in his ear about it. Can't imagine why Jay Woodcroft wouldn't be in his ear about it. Just important. You want to be a bottom 6 forward that's effective in the 3rd round of the playoffs. You got to learn how to finish checks and play a harder game. We've seen him at times. He's been able to do it here and there, but it's just not nearly enough of the way he thinks about the game out there. Anyways, enough about that. We're over time. Coming up after the break, you want it. You need it. Trade talk in our takeaways segment. You're listening to Got Your Back here with Strudwick and Rishaug. Plenty more to come. Joined now by Sterling Dirk, right inside the beautiful store over at Mr. Dirk. Sterling, time for a little rapid fire. You up for it?
I'm ready. Here we go.
All right, true or false? You took on title sponsorship of this podcast for the sole purpose of fixing Jason Strudwick's mess.
True. His wife came begging for help.
It's going to be a long, beautiful relationship. It's going to take us a while, pal. All right, true or false? If someone's frustrated looking at their wardrobe, doesn't like their options, it's immediately $1,500 to make any change.
False. You start with one item, you build it up. It's like anything in life. You just need to kind of start placing those pieces and then adding more and more, but it doesn't need to happen all at once.
True or false? Suits are the main thing that Mr. Dirk offers.
False. Actually, we carry a wide array of product from jeans, shoes, socks, underwear, t-shirts, casual wear. I mean, we specialize in tailoring, but we are head to toe for all of our clients from weekend to regular everyday office.
Great stuff. Check out the shop just off White Avenue at 102nd Street. And for all their stock, visit them online, mrdirk.com. Thanks, Sterling. I'll see you soon, buddy. I'm due.
We'll see you soon.
Hey, Struddy, question for you. Have you ever tried putting in your own fence?
I sure have. Between digging the posts, mixing up cement and digging the holes is absolute killer.
It's brutal on the back. Well, listen, what if I told you you could put in a fence without having to dig a hole or mix any concrete?
I'd be much more likely to come over and help you out.
Yeah, well, you're not the first guy I would call, but thank you for that. Listen, my brother's company, DLR Vinyl Products, they've come up with a system where you can actually put high-quality vinyl fence in the ground without having to dig a hole, without having to mix any concrete. They can teach do-it-yourselfers how to do it, and they can also work with contractors who might be looking to start installing vinyl. It's super high-quality product. The great thing about it is that it has fantastic longevity. You put it in, you don't have to worry about staining or sanding or anything like that. I've been lucky enough, Struddy. They've put in multiple fences in my different yards and they've built me 3 decks. I have totally abused the fact that my family is in the fencing and decking business, but it's great product. Give Rob a call in Calgary or Rick a call here in Edmonton. This is a company my dad started. It's a family business. I'm super proud of it. That's DLR Vinyl Products in Edmonton and Calgary. All right, time now for takeaways, brought to you by Sherwood Buick GMC. Time to talk trades. The number one GMC dealership in all of Canada, 5 years running. Sherwood Buick GMC actually has trucks in stock for you. They can get them in short order. They're not one of those dealerships that you go to and you got to wait like 10 months before they can actually get you what you want. And the staff is fantastic there. The process is streamlined. The financing is quick and easy. It's a big, beautiful dealership. One of the nicest I've ever been in, just off Baseline Road on the way into Sherwood Park. Go see Phil and the crew at Sherwood Buick GMC. Tell them that Got Your Back sent ya. Okay, Struds, we talked at the start of the podcast about Oiler fans feeling a little impatient right now, wanting their general manager to get something done. And I understand that level of impatience. This is a bit of a high wire act for Ken Holland. This really is, because he's waiting for prices to come down, but trades are happening all around him. Orlov off the board, McCabe off the board. By the way, they weren't getting McCabe. So there's an impatience there, but listen, I think I understand why he's handling this the way he is. But I guess what I would say is that if they end up not getting something, if they end up not being able to improve this blue line, I don't know, man. They've had this need since day one of training camp. We have all known since day one of training camp, a second pairing left shot D was the need. And now here they are 3 days before the deadline, and they still don't have it. And it just feels like a high wire act.
Yeah, and I guess so. I feel like this is something I think about all the time, and I agree. To me, D is the answer. There's no other. People asking for Tanner Jeannot or another goalie, an elite forward. Like, they got to address the D. They need to push everybody down a spot. There's one name that does that: Erik Karlsson. Does Chychrun help? Yes, he does. Can Edmondson help you when healthy? Yeah, he brings something they don't really have, a really heavy physical player. But there's one guy. So
it's not happening. Like, barring a miracle here, Struds. I mean, you listen to what Greer said the other day. Even Erik Karlsson himself said it would be kind of weird for them to come and ask me to waive my trade or my no trade clause now.
Yeah.
It feels like that ship has sailed. I don't think it's happening.
So then is it worth the prices that are being paid for Gavrikov? Is that worth it? Is that worth it for a rental? I don't think it is. Now, Oilers fans want something, and they're not thinking long term. And listen, I get. You have to. Now's the time. You got to put your chips in. I want to put my chips in when it makes sense. I'm not going in with a 7-2. Shogger, you maybe play a little bit crazier when it's poker. I wouldn't go all in with the 7-2. To me, Gavrikov will help, but he's not worth.
7-2 though. They don't have
What?
a 7 they don't have a 7-2.
In poker?
They have a much better. No, they don't have.
No, but I'm saying going in, getting Gavrikov is like going all in with a 7-2. That's what it's like.
I don't agree with this analogy. How is that? So when you say getting Gavrikov, you mean paying their first round pick to go and get a guy that they know is a rental.
That's right.
So they're going all in with a guy that they know that they're not going to be able to keep, but you still get to have him.
But
and you still got a good team.
Is he that much better than what they currently have?
I think he would be one of their better defenders, I think, right away. Not one of their better puck movers, but I think he'd be one of their better defenders right away.
I don't know, man.
It's all about the first round pick. So that's what we're talking about. Right. Because do you spend the first round pick on a player like Gavrikov who upgrades you? You're immediately a better team defensively when you get him. They are.
Yeah.
But you're not going to retain him. And this year's draft is a valuable draft. I've said all along, I think they're going to be hesitant to spend this year's first round pick on a rental. But what would be worse? Spending a first round pick on a rental in Gavrikov, and he comes in and he plays okay for him. He ends up being their number 4.
Yeah.
And one of their better defenders who can kill some penalties, and he ends up playing decent for them, but then he's gone and the Oilers don't make the Stanley Cup final.
Right.
Or they don't get anything. Or they get a player that doesn't compete in their top 2 pairings at all. What would be the bigger crime for Ken Holland? To spend that first rounder on a guy you're not going to retain, or to not make a dent in what we all know to be the team's biggest issue, Struds?
If you're asking me specifically at Gavrikov, I think it's getting Gavrikov would be the bigger crime. I just don't think that I just don't. If you're gonna, and again, it's the assets, your asset management. I look at what the Leafs did yesterday. They got 2 players that are under contract moving forward for basically what we're talking about the same for Gavrikov. Just think about that for a second. So they're going to have Jake McCabe for 2 more years at $2 million. I don't know how they got that deal. I don't know what Dubas knows about Davidson. And then you get Lafferty on top of it.
I thought it was a great deal before I knew they retained any salary. I looked at the deal. I was like, oh, that's a really good deal for Toronto. Then I found out they retained.
Crazy deal. Crazy. So he put assets out that solve a short-term and long-term problem for his team. I love that move. I love it. I love that move, and I hate Leafs fans. So sending out a first and a third for Gavrikov, and who I don't believe is as good as McCabe or Lafferty together, and that's the solution for Oilers fans. Guys.
Well, maybe that's part of what Ken Holland's waiting for, right? I think he's waiting on a couple of things. This is where I think it's at. I think so on Chychrun. I think the problem is that Arizona is not willing to bring money back. They're not willing to do a dirty deal where they got to pay somebody else and muck up the deal with ugly contracts. And I think they're holding firm on that, looking for that clean deal. Yeah. I think they felt like were close to it with LA by all the reporting. And so until Arizona comes off of this idea that they're not going to take anything back that's ugly, there's not going to be a deal there for Ken Holland. I think he's waiting to see if that changes as the deadline draws nearer. If it doesn't, there will be no deal. Every day he waits, he risks. I think on Gavrikov, they're trying to take advantage of a Columbus team that thought they had a deal with Boston and was rattled to find out that they didn't. And now they need to move this asset. And, we'll see how many dance partners there are. I think everybody's waiting for them to come off that first and third or first plus and looking to do, a second and a third, or a second and a B prospect and a third, or something else other than that first. So I think he's being patient, waiting. But it's a high wire act because these guys might just end up going. It's an arms race that we're seeing out east. Then you have Dregs reporting on Edmondson, and you have Dregs reporting on Ekholm, that there was interest in conversations on both those fronts. I think Edmondson is extremely risky I mean, I walk the earth every day with a bad back.
Yeah.
It sucks, and it makes you completely unreliable. And that's the issue that he's facing. Ekholm, I don't know how you make the money work. But those style of players make sense as well, Struddy, because primarily at their core, they're defenders.
I love Ekholm. Unfortunately, he's getting older, and he's not who he was even a year or two ago. But neither was Duncan Keith, and he came in and provided a pretty good year. But it was 1 year. Now, obviously, there was some things that happened to get him, to get him off the contract. But I just can't wrap my head around investing so many assets in question marks. That's the hard part. I just don't. I have a really hard time with that. And if I'm the GM, I'm like, how can I make these moves in good conscience? I have an aging defenseman in Nashville, Edmondson, who is very breakable, Chikrin, who's going to cost a lot, and is he going to be healthy? And then Gavrikov's going to cost so much. Like any one of those guys, I think they help the Oilers if healthy, in the short term for some of them, longer term for others. And I don't know. How as an Oilers fan can you really think those are your four best solutions? I just have a hard time with it, man. I'm not a risky guy, and I'm not sure that that's the answer.
No shit. No kidding.
Really, well, which one's your favorite? Which one's your favorite? I just don't. I don't know how you can do it. How do you?
But how do you do nothing? How do you do nothing? I mean, that's going to be my answer to all of your doubt about all of these players is how do you this year with this team, McDavid doing what he's doing after last year, after seeing how wide open the West is. The West is wide open. Now, Colorado will have something to say about that, but still, it's wide open in the West. How do you not? I mean, look at what Tampa Bay did. Like, I hear you, man. There was a lot of picks, but Tampa Bay's like, screw it. I mean, those picks, maybe one of those picks one day will be able to play as many games as Tanner Jeannot. Maybe not, so they go for it because they're in their window and they go for it with players that they know that they can retain. And that's the brilliance there is they trade high assets, but they trade them for guys that are able to contribute for a long time. How do you do nothing? Like, what do you think this team is capable of as it is right now? Because I'm telling you, I'm not sure that, they're not equipped to beat any of the big teams out east in a Stanley Cup final, and they're not equipped potentially to even get out of the West as they sit right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's fair. And I get it. Like I have a hard time. And so listen, it's not even the fact that I'm for trading a first rounder, but let's say if you don't trade the first rounder and then you get to before the draft and that first rounder this year and next year delivers you Erik Karlsson. Is that the opportunity cost? Is that service time of Gavrikov worth it for the opportunity to get Erik Karlsson this summer?
Yeah, I mean, fair point. That first round pick, the deal can always be made in and around the draft, right? And if that's the core piece, one of the core pieces in a return that improves you big time for next year, I don't believe they can think about too much more than this moment and, the next 2 years. Anything beyond that, and I think you're thinking too far ahead. So really, this might boil down to, is Ken Holland willing to come away with nothing significant?
Mm-hmm.
Or is he willing to move that first round pick and just make sure and upgrade his ability to defend with Gavrikov? You willing to put that first round pick in play to upgrade your team's ability to defend? If he did that, I mean, fans will be, of course, some will say too much, shouldn't have done it. Mm-hmm. But what you won't be able to argue is that he sacrificed future assets to give the team a better chance in the moment, addressing one of their bigger needs, which is to defend better. I don't know how much criticism you can face when you clearly made a move to address one of your biggest deficiencies in a moment where you're in a window.
I don't believe a GM's job is to placate the fans with trades. His job is to monitor the team and do what's best for the team short and long term. And, if there's, like, I look at the Leafs trade yesterday, and I'm giving them a lot of credit. That Leafs trade, that is a significant upgrade and improvement for their group. Would you feel Gavrikov would deliver the same? Let's say it's a first and a third. Is that delivering the same value for the Oilers.
No, well, I mean, you throw Lafferty in there, and it's a total
No.
difference maker, completely, right? So no,
So that's the problem. That's the reality. Is that they made a significant improvement. Gavrikov, yeah, he's going to help you a bit, but I don't know if he's that much better than what they have already, and that's a hard thing for me to sell.
Is he only going to help you a bit? I don't know. I mean, we've seen him play a few times, paid closer attention to him since his name has been out there.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, he's not going to make a ton of wicked, up ice, tape to tape passes. He's not going to be the guy that helps them transport it out of their end more efficiently. He's not that guy. Mm-hmm. But he will help you defend better. He will help you kill penalties. There's a competitiveness in his game. Like they'll be better with him on the blue line. Yeah. He is definitely an upgrade in their top two pairings, I think.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's probably what it ends up on, right? Because I think everyone else has a question mark, and this is the shortest term issue for the Oilers. Like they're not taking on Edmondson contract. Man, that's a tough one. I have a really tough time with that one.
What about the longer term here? The fact that they've known about this deficiency all year and have left it this long to address it in a year this important. And you can say, well, salary cap and they started the year in LTIR. A lot of teams started the year in real cap trouble. A lot of the teams were in a similar position to the Oilers. And, at any point, they could have been grinding on this and addressing this, but it's been left to now. And I do think that opens them up to some criticism. Everybody has known what they've needed from the very beginning. And you're saying at no point during the year was there a sequence of events that they could have put in place, whether it was moving someone at a certain time or maybe a trade that didn't make a ton of sense in the moment, but opened up some space. And, they had a whole year to plan for fixing this. And if it doesn't get done, I think that opens them up to a tremendous amount of criticism. And I'm not trying to be unfair. I just think for a need this obvious to be left this long, if it doesn't eventually get addressed and this team is ill-equipped when it matters most, I think that's a major mistake.
Yeah. I mean, the number of players under contract for defensemen that are pretty small, that are tradable, the list is small. I think we've covered them all. And, there's probably a trade to be made for Ekholm. There wasn't a trade to be made for Jake McCabe. Orlov didn't fit the bill, at least because he had no contract. If you want term, right? I don't know who the guy is out there. And I know people say, well, people make trades all the time. Like, well, show me that the guy under contract, the D-man, and Chychrun's the guy. So, if you're going to make me at gunpoint, make a trade, it's Chychrun. Call him up, get it done. Let's do it. That's the guy. Because I think that fits it short and long term.
Well, now you're going to have to figure out how to trade Yamamoto somewhere else or Fogle somewhere else. You're going to have to get creative and send. If Arizona's not taking the money back, you're going to have to execute some trades. You're going to have to package these guys with draft picks, find somewhere else to send them, clear the money up, execute the deal, bite the bullet. This year's first, next year's first, a second the following year, whatever the natural price is for Chychrun, and figure out other destinations for the other guys. It will be complicated and complex. And Ken Holland is taking this right down to the wire. But there's still a few days left. We shall see. It's going to be fun. Hey, Struddy?
Oh, I can't wait to see how it happens because it'll be literally a shitstorm no matter what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the Oilers showed they can compete with the best team in the league last night, but definitely feels like they're missing some pieces. And a little bit of help will go a long way. In a 7-game playoff series against teams of that caliber, it's clear to me the Oilers need some help. We'll see if Ken Holland can find it for them. Great pod today, Struds. Thanks, my friend.
Good times.
All right, folks. Oilers in action on Wednesday night against the Toronto Maple Leafs. We'll look to drop some more podcasts a little bit later on in the week. Also, a Got Your Back NHL edition with Pierre LeBrun, Mike Johnson, and myself set to go tomorrow. So keep an eye out on our Twitter feed for that as well. Have yourselves a fantastic Tuesday. Thanks for joining us here on Got Your Back. Big thanks to our sponsors, Mr. Dirk, DLR Vinyl Products, Weiss Johnson, Horse Racing Alberta, and of course our good friends at Sherwood Buick GMC. Talk to you soon, folks. Cheers.